excited to be hosting this Supporting Women in Technology event tonight. We have an exciting night planned out for you. Adrienne Tacke will be discussing her journey, roadblocks, and her book that teaches Python to children, followed by a Q&A panel with Adrienne and internal Zillow employees as well. I want to thank JavaScript LA, this is their website up here, for partnering with us on this event. That's VJ who runs it. And for those of you who are not familiar with JavaScript LA, they help run amazing events like this. So if you want to check out some events that they have coming up, javascriptla.net. I want to also thank our Women's Impact Network, WIN, for partnering with us. This event is particularly meaningful to us, as inclusion and empowerment is something that we all stand for at Zillow Group, which is why it's also one of our core values. I'd love to introduce Yen, the director of WIN at our Irvine office, to share how we live out our core values through our affinity networks.
Hi everyone, thank you for being here. I'm so excited to meet all of you later tonight. My name is Yen and I'm the site leader here for WIN, which stands for Women's Impact Network. And I want to talk to you a little bit more about our affinity networks here and why we have it at Zillow Group. The affinity network here are a core pathway for engaging our employees in our equity and belonging work. These vibrant communities provide spaces to discuss problems and craft solutions while also creating leaderships and professional development opportunities for our members. Our Women Impact Network, known as WIN, is a community where all of Zillow Group employees who identify as women or wish to support women to come together, collaborate, grow, and professionally be empowered. We are committed to support one another in efforts to foster and celebrate a diverse, progressive workplace and community where all employees have a sense of belonging and value. We pledge ourselves to make an ongoing impact in dedicated pillars of focus, such as social belonging, personal equity, professional development, and community outreach. I'm excited for our panel discussion tonight with Adrienne being here, as this showcases our hard work and dedication that we have done to empower women. So thank you.
I'm back with a few announcements. If you did not get a raffle ticket, please get one. We're going to be raffling off Adrienne's books later. There's 5, so 5 of you will be lucky winners. And then if you also did not get a validation for your parking, please come find us at the end. But now I'd like to hand it off to Adrienne.
Hi everybody. My name is Adrienne Tacke. I am a software engineer. Hello. Okay. I am a software engineer. I've been one for about 7 years, 8 years, and Zillow and VJ from JavaScript LA has kindly asked me to kind of share my story, share my journey of how it's been for me, my particular story, and hopefully it relates with some other people who may be interested, who are already in tech, not necessarily just software engineering, maybe you're a program manager, there's a lot of different positions in tech. So with that, I'll start. So I'm Filipina, but born in California. I was born in Northridge. I've been all over the place. I was born in Northern California. I spent a couple of years in the Philippines, came back to California. I actually lived in Tustin for a couple of years, then moved to Corona, and then moved to Florida, and then came all the way back to, I was supposed to go to college back in California because that's where my entire family is from. But I saw the out-of-state college tuition for that, and I said, no thank you. So I ended up going to Las Vegas, where my grandmother on my father's side lives. And at the time, she said, come on down to Las Vegas, I'll help you pay for college. I'm like, I'm there. But this was right before the real estate crash, and she owns a real estate company there. So, and then it ended up I had to pay for my own college, but such is life. So I ended up going to UNLV, University of Nevada, Las Vegas. And when I was there, I was not one of these people who knew that tech was in my core. You know, I wasn't messing around with things at 6 and 7. I didn't have, well, it's kind of weird, but my father wasn't there. He actually left before I was born, so awkward, but that's there. And I didn't have that father figure or any kind of influence in that way to kind of steer me to the stereotypical male-led things like that, like engineering or taking things apart or electrical engineering, those things that were reserved for men. So I never had this inkling to really be in STEM. I didn't know it was a thing. The only thing that was even close to that was probably during the MySpace days when you would create your own themes for MySpace. I was one of those where the pre-built themes did not work for me. I didn't like the themes there didn't work. I wanted my own. So that's where I kind of started. But even then, I didn't know that I wanted to go into tech. I didn't know it was a thing. And really, the only thing I was passionate about was traveling. And I wanted to be the next Anthony Bourdain. So when I went to UNLV, I pre-enrolled as an international business major because I thought that's what you enroll in to get a job like Anthony Bourdain. And then I learned that that's not what you do, that's not what it is, it's absolutely wrong, and I was crushed. But I needed to find a job to help me pay for school because grandma can't help me now because the real estate bubble burst, right? So while I was looking, this is a very, very key part in my life where I was just telling Annie and the others in Amal and Trip earlier, who will be on the panel later, this was a key moment for me because whatever job that I had found, I really believe that would have been the industry I stayed in. And for me in particular, the job I got was a student technician job at the IT help desk at UNLV. So that's resetting passwords, troubleshooting your computer, did you try turning it on and off again? Had professors, you know, yelling at you saying, why is the computer not working? Make it work, make it work. So that was my first foray into tech. And funnily enough, I actually liked it. Not the people yelling at me, not the people, you know, who, for lack of a better phrase, did not respect customer service people. But I liked the troubleshooting. I liked solving the problems. I liked seeing why are they getting this error on this computer, or did it go through these other steps? You know, turning it on and off again, having even the computer run its own troubleshooting mechanisms. All of these things of diving down and seeing what is the root cause of this, and that's where it kind of started, where my mind started to shift. While I was in this job, I actually also met my husband, who's also a developer. If you're watching, hello, I love you. And at that time, that's all I wanted to say. I met my husband during this job, so that's the foundation for how nerdy we are even today. But there was a software development internship that opened up around my sophomore year of college. And I didn't think I was cut out for it. I really wanted it, and the only reason I wanted it was because instead of getting $8.25 an hour, this job was $16.75 an hour. And that was really rare to find, right? A paid internship. So I really, really wanted this. And I tried for it, and I got it. And that's where the world of software development opened up for me. This is where I learned about what waterfall methodology is. So, you know, you collect your requirements of what you want to build, then you gather that all, you formalize it into a document, you work with all these different teams to kind of get together to see what's needed to implement that, and then, you know, you code it, you implement it, and you deliver it somehow, you deploy it somehow. But I loved every single moment of it. I got to spend a little bit of time with all these different groups. I spent time with some database administrators. That was cool. That wasn't for me. I worked with some sysadmins. I worked with project managers. I got a little bit of a taste of every part of software engineering, and it ended up just being the actual coding that I enjoyed the most. I had a very, very good support group at this job. Funnily enough, my group there was actually majority women. There's only one man, one software engineer that was a man, and the other three engineers were ladies. So maybe that's probably why I got a good foundation. But They were always, asking the hard questions. They were always, I think because I was in a group where it was majority women, at the beginning, I didn't really actually fall into any of these issues or, discriminatory things. I have yet to get to that, which I did a little later on, but it was just, it wasn't a thing. Man, woman, it's just everybody was an engineer and everyone just did their job and everyone tried to teach me how to do something. And at that time, I was still in Trip, my first language was VB, so, woo, yeah. So VB was my first language, and I worked on the email administration system for the entire university. So what that consisted of was, we had a basic app where we worked with some Google APIs because we use Gmail as our email system, and in order to create accounts, to reset their passwords, you had to work with their APIs. And at that time, that was rocket science to me. I'm like, what do you do with the API key? I don't know, what's the secret? I don't know what to do. So at that time was just really a lot of exploration about what is involved in software engineering. And one of the lessons I learned from here is I didn't ask enough questions. I felt so lucky to even be in this internship that I always felt like I had to put up a front. I had to never ever show that I didn't know something. I didn't want to show, any sign that I wasn't right for this internship. Because they can easily just, find somebody else. Someone else is going to make $16.75 an hour. There's a lot of kids who would want that job, who would probably work, and I didn't want to give that inkling up. But what I learned as I moved later on in my job was that I wasted a lot of time pretending to know things when I didn't. I wasted a lot of time not getting to ask those questions, especially at the time that I was an intern. I'm not supposed to know something. That's the time to ask questions. And there were a lot of really good people there that I could have learned and benefited from, but I didn't because I was always putting up the front. Like, oh, do you know how to do this? I don't know, what was it? Do you know how to do this left join? I'm like, yeah, I know how to do it. And then I would spend maybe 4 or 5 hours Googling, Stack Overflowing, everything, double, triple checking to make sure what I was doing was right, instead of just asking. And just asking them, someone with so much more experience, someone who's willing to teach me, someone who understands that I'm just an intern and can't possibly know what this is yet, to just ask them to tell them to show me how to do it. Because for me, that's much easier for me to watch somebody do something and then do it myself. So that was the lesson I learned at that position. When I graduated college, I got extended an offer for a full-time position at the same department. So I worked for the Office of Information Technology at UNLV for about 4 years. And this is where I really started to hone my skills, still VB, still working with Google's APIs. But in this sense, I started getting a sense of what it means to know enough to participate in some kind of technical discussions. So a lot of the meetings that we had, they always invited us and they always wanted to get our opinion on something, whether it was a really large project where they needed to consolidate everybody onto a single sign-on for UNLV, because at the time we had maybe 5 different logins to go into different systems, and we wanted to consolidate into a single one. And obviously they asked the dev team for their input because this was going to be university-wide. And at the time, it's always incremental steps. So at the time I was, okay, now I'm comfortable maybe asking questions and asking for help when it's something I don't know, but I was still too afraid to actually participate in these kind of discussions. So sure, I graduated, sure, I'm a full-time associate developer now, but that's just it. I still felt I'm just an associate. I'm not a senior engineer. I'm not an architect who's been here, who knows the systems for 5 years and can give this input. And the problem with that is that sometimes you need fresh eyes to kind of just, from my perspective, from not knowing everything, from not knowing how things have existed for the last 5 years, sometimes that's needed when you are participating in these kinds of discussions. Sometimes being that naive and being that objective from this situation that you're exploring or analyzing is needed. And I believe that's the one thing I learned, that I said I would never do that again, and for whatever job that I got or whatever there was another technical discussion that I would come to, I would certainly do my part to try to research and participate, or even just speak up and say, well, this may sound naive, but coming from where I'm looking at, shouldn't we just do this, or shouldn't we just do that, or why have we not thought about this? But I think what a lot of us struggle with, not just women, just anybody new in something, is, fearing looking stupid, or fearing that what they have to say is not important. And I think time and time again, I've been proven wrong. Every job that I've had that feeling. I'm like, I'm just gonna say it anyway, and I said it, and it actually turned out for the better. Whether that's for clarification on my part, because I didn't have any knowledge that would have led me to believe something else otherwise, or I actually did bring something up that nobody else was thinking about, because they were either too in the weeds or too into, this is how it's always been done. So that's something that has very much helped me in my career. From that position, I was very happy. I was very stagnant. I was there for 4 years. And something that the next lesson I learned was when you get bored, when you're not learning anything anymore, at least for me, that's when I needed to go. And I love this group to death. I love my first job. I always will. And I love the people. It's never about the people. Well, at this job, it wasn't about the people. At this job, it wasn't about the people. But I wasn't learning anything. This is at the time where web development started to pick up. React was the hot new thing. Everybody was starting to learn a lot more about contributing to open source and things like that. And that's something I wanted to be a part of. But at the time, we weren't working on anything like that. Nothing like that was being done. I think I was put on something, I don't know, has anyone heard of PeopleSoft? PeopleSoft? Yeah? So like 1 or 2 people, that's what I'm saying. So that is, it's not the direction I wanted to go. That's not where that's not where I saw my career going for the next 10 years. So it was very difficult for me because it was comfortable. That's the best benefits that I would ever find in a job. Unlimited PTO, a 13.5% match on retirement. Where do you find that? Very comfortable benefits, but with that comfort and stability comes, you're stagnant. There's no growing in there. So I took the jump and I moved to my next job, which was Healthcare Partners. Healthcare Partners is a healthcare company, and I took a position as a junior .NET developer. Oh man, I was feeling so good. I made such a large salary bump there. I felt like I was legit, and there was so much more I had to learn. So when I got to this job, same thing. Every job I learned something new. At this particular job, it was the first time I learned how to build something myself from idea to fruition. And I hope this works. So it's one of the things, actually two of the things that I'm most proud of in my career came from this job. And the first one, I think this works. Cool at this. So this is something I built for Healthcare Partners. It is a wait time display, and so we have about 10 clinics in Las Vegas, and they had a display, an existing wait time display on their TVs, where you would have your doctor, and it would have your estimated wait time when you would expect to see your doctor. That's it. And if it looked like this, it was very, very tiny, like probably smaller than the font of the doctor's names. And no pictures, no color. It's just a very bulleted list at the upper left corner. Nobody could read it. It was pretty much pointless. Unless you went all the way up to the TV and looked at it, it didn't help. So they asked me, they said, this is an app that has been here. We want to make it better. And you have free reign, yay, Greenfield project. You have free reign to make this better. That was it. That was the only requirement I got. So what I did was I went to all of these clinics and I asked them, what is the problem with it other than the obvious? It's too hard to read, it's not really informative, there's so much white space, you could put so much more helpful information on here. And what ended up happening was I got this is where I believe I honed my skills on focusing on the user. For these clinics, these are senior focused clinics. So a lot of them were older patients or people who had a harder time reading things. And with that in mind, along with taking myself into consideration, if I was looking at this, what would I want to see in a wait time app? So this is what I ended up with. I'm pretty proud of it. I put the picture of the doctor there so you know who your doctor is, right? I put the estimated wait time, the most important piece of information, as bold and as big as possible. So even if you just looked at it at a glance, even if you're very far away at the end of the waiting room, you can see, oh, that's my doctor and the estimated wait time is 15 minutes. That's the goal. That's the number one thing that's important from this display. I added the actual name of the clinic because you would believe, it's hard to believe, but some people actually went to their home clinic and I said, well, we have extra space on here, you might as well put it on there. Put the logo and there's two sections to some clinics. Some have just doctors, so those are the providers on duty. And on the bottom was the urgent care wait, if they had an urgent care section. And that's it, and they loved it. They loved it so much, they expanded it and said, we want this at every clinic. And that was a really, really proud moment for me because I took a gamble on this. I had no design experience whatsoever. As you can kind of tell here, this was the Google material design framework. So you may have heard of Bootstrap. This is Google's flavor of it. And I liked it, I played around with it. And this is where I got my experience with just kind of hacking away at things. Just putting things together, seeing what works, seeing what doesn't work. And this paid off because I listened to those requirements, put something together. So this is one of the things I'm very, very proud of. And if you go to a Healthcare Partners clinic in Vegas, you can probably still see it today. So another project I did, same company, was called the Patient Experience Survey. And I mean, this is where I don't think it's as cool, but I guess I'll show. You've seen better surveys. But the point here is they haven't had, again, senior focused clinics. And a very important part about their ratings is the patient experience score. So this is calculated from the feedback they get from patients who are willing to take the survey. And I had never worked with anything other than a desktop before, so these were on tablets. Every clinic had a tablet that these surveys would be on. And again, this was something I was tasked with. I had no idea how to do this. I had an idea what I thought it should look like, but I had no idea how to implement it. And again, this was another project. You'll see it's a little wonky here. This is my experience speaking now, saying it should be more to the center. But essentially, it's a survey asking them for how their experience went at these clinics. Submit it. And for me, I'm thinking, aren't there pre-made surveys already? Aren't there things that we could use that don't require me to build this from scratch? And the focus that they wanted was that, again, it was senior focus. So all the surveys that they had, like SurveyMonkey or other services like that, I guess at the time didn't have the chance to change it or to make the font bigger or to add more pictures. I'm sure now they do, but it was another opportunity, and an opportunity that scared me because I didn't know, but I got put on the job, and this is what I came up with, and it worked out pretty well. But the lesson I want to share there, other than just showing off what I did as a junior .NET developer, is that these were things that were assigned to me that I had anxiety about for probably the next 4 months that happened while I was building it. Because here's this thing that they're expecting from me, and am I going to be able to do it? Am I going to be able to fulfill what they need? Is this going to work? What happens when there's a bug? How do I deploy this? I don't know how to deploy this. How is this going to go to all these other clinics? Those are all these questions that kept weighing down on me, and I'm saying, I'm going to screw up on one of these things, and I'm going to be found out that this is not for me. I'm going to be found out that I'm not doing my job. but I didn't. I was a junior .NET developer. I persevered, and what I want to show is that it can be really, really scary, but if you don't just kind of go into it and try it, then you'll never know. You'll never know, and you'll always be held back. At this position, I accomplished these two things, and after that, I noticed that I was not getting paid. I learned that I was not getting paid as much as another intern who was male. So this is where I started. Now my career experience is going from I need to learn all of these technical topics to how do I move up in my career? How do I advance? How do I get to where I want to be? How do I navigate these types of things that I didn't even know I had to deal with? After learning that my male, also junior .NET developer, not just an older person or a higher level title, another developer, junior .NET intern, junior .NET developer, was making around 20,000 more than me. And that's when I said, this is not for me. I brought it up. I said, look, I am doing the same amount of work. I have been working here for much longer. I have developed these two applications that you are now using in multiple clinics. Why am I not getting paid as much as this person? And that was a very difficult subject for my manager because she didn't know how to answer. So at that point, it was a very scary jump for me, but I left because I know that there are other jobs out there, especially with my skill set, that I can find where the company is fair, where the company doesn't care what you look like, they care about what you produce, or the willingness to work, your work ethic, what your skills can do. That's what should matter. And it was at this point that kind of rang true for me that said, you know, knowledge should be the only thing that matters for anybody, not just in tech, but for anybody. And this is where I kind of started to grow in my own self, confident in my own self, because at this time, I always dress like this. I dress very feminine, very business, office, corporate-like, whatever you want to call it. I like dressing this way. I like wearing heels. I like, doing makeup and hair. But at the time, they always made the joke saying, are you going on another interview because you're so dressed up? Especially in tech, where a lot of the groups, they're a little bit more laid back. They don't care if you don't have to have a dress code. You can wear jeans and shirts, and that's fine. I'm not saying that that's bad. But this is where I started to grow to say, nope, not only am I going to get paid the amount that I'm worth, I'm going to keep wearing what I'm wearing because this is who I am. I'm not going to falter, or I'm not going to do this just because somebody else thinks that I'm going to be taken more seriously if I'm wearing jeans and a black hoodie or whatever stereotype I'm going to do. After this position, I had a short stint at, it's called Altius, so it's a consumer writing platform, and this was a work from home position. So this was my first foray into learning what working from home was like, and you need to be very disciplined, very, very disciplined. So I would have meetings at 8:30 a.m. I would set my alarm for 8:25 a.m. And it was nice for a while. I enjoy the freedom very much. I can make my own coffee, do my laundry while something's compiling. It was great. But after about 6 months, again, I got bored. I missed the interaction with people. I missed, talking to a team about how to implement something. I missed talking to other people and going and building these things with other people rather than just being by myself, siloed, working on something. So with that experience, I learned that remote work could work for me, but it depends on the company and it depends on the type of work I'm doing. And at that time, I was bored. So I moved again. I moved to a company or not really a company, it was a software development agency of about 5 people. It's called Fifth Street Partners, and this was the first major jump I had as, I would say, more than an intermediate engineer. I had the title senior software engineer, but for me, titles don't really mean anything, maybe other than a little salary bump. But for me, it's about what you know. And at this job, this is where I started to learn about how do you build software, how do you deploy these things? Because it's one thing to know how to build something, it's another to know how do you scale this? When 1,000 people use your application, you have to build your application in a different way. And deploying these things, you hear these terms, continuous integration, continuous deployment. These are real things that you need to know in order to have a solid development workflow. You need to know how to use Git. These are things I didn't know. I had title senior software engineer, but I didn't know how to use Git. So in this job, where I was made very aware that I was very weak in these things and that they're very key things to being a decent software engineer, a software engineer who knows how to build good software. I started to learn about that. I was made aware of this weakness I had that I knew I needed to succeed. So I studied and I worked with my team to get better at it, and I asked questions. I wasn't afraid anymore. I said, how do you use this? How do you use this on the command line? What is this? And it kept going on and kept moving forward. After that position ended only because we were contract based and we didn't have another project lined up for us, so that dissolved and the team left. And after that, the position I got was the one I'm in now. I'm a software engineer at a company called Debt Trader, and it sounds a lot more ominous than it is, but Debt Trader is essentially a platform where you can buy and sell debt in a compliant way. So everyone knows that there's mortgages, student loans, auto loans, any type of debt. And if you've ever gotten a letter before that says, even though your loan was originated by Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac, now it's going to be taken over by Great Lakes or something. I got those letters for my student loans. That's what that means. That means somebody put their debt for sale, this portfolio of accounts. Somebody else purchased it, so now they are the ones who are going to be collecting on that debt. And what our platform does is it vets every person, every buyer and seller on that network to make sure they're compliant, to make sure they don't use strong arm tactics. They aren't the ones that go to your house and say, we're gonna break your arm if you don't pay this. So that's what we try to assure in that job. And in this job, this is where I believe I really took off, because when I started this job, I started an Instagram account and I started to share bits of my life as a software engineer, because at the time, alluding back to how I dress, I didn't see too many engineers who looked like me, who dressed like me, and who were doing what I was doing. So that's why I started that account. Had no intention of, my goal was not to become an influencer or grow and do all these things. I just shared my life. Here's my, day, I'm working on this bug, blah, blah, blah. It grew because when I was sharing my posts, I really tried to emphasize sharing things that the old me would have wanted. How do I use Git? What is this command line thing? I'm so scared of it, this black box, what does it do? And that was one of the series that actually became very popular. I called it Don't Be Afraid of the Terminal, where every now and then I would share, this is how you change directories in a terminal. You use CD, change directory, or you use the grep command. It's kind of like a powerful search engine. And I would share these kinds of things in my posts, and that grew, and it grew, and it grew, and it resonated with a lot of people, because they're saying, oh, wait, what, how is she sharing technical topics, but, she's dressed femininely or whatever. And I kind of took it upon myself to continue that, because I got a lot of messages from other girls who are saying, you know what, I got really, really inspired by you, because I didn't think I could be in this field. I am not hackerish enough. I got that message where I wear makeup, I wear skirts, I wear heels. No one's gonna take me seriously. I don't belong in here. I'm not good at math. I'm the only girl in this class, but all of these people, and it was very, very flattering for me. I didn't think I would affect these people by sharing what I shared. And they reached out to me, luckily. I'm thankful they reached out to me to tell me that what I was doing was making an impact, at least to these people. And so I kept doing that, and it grew. And with that, I'm very thankful, because of my Instagram, I get to meet people like BJ, who asked me to speak at the JavaScript LA meetups. This is one of them. Because of that, a publisher reached out to me to write a book. for kids. This is the book I wrote, Coding for Kids Python. I wrote this book while working a 9-to-5 job within the span of 3 months. And if you've ever taken programming concepts and tried to write about it so that a 10-year-old would understand and make it fun and engaging, writing this book was the hardest thing I've ever had to do in my life. More than any job that I've done, more than any project I've coded or worked with, and I'm very, very proud of it. But the Instagram thing just kind of propelled me forward to say there's so many opportunities to engage with other people, to teach more people, to go to all these places and to show that there are people like me. And there's other people here from Instagram who have come out here to support me, and Laura, and I'm really happy about that. I never would have thought something like this would occur. I was just somebody who was posting like every other person on Instagram, but it just so happens it clicked with some people. So that's what I'm focusing on. I'm focusing on being confident in what I do. I'm focusing on being confident in the knowledge that I have. I'm focused on telling everyone it's okay if you don't know something. Yesterday I had another meetup in Woodland Hills where I went over a program called Advent of Code. And what it is, it's a bunch of puzzles that you solve using a programming language that you want. And I was explaining my JavaScript solutions to these puzzles. And I stumbled upon some code I wrote in December. So my own code, I didn't remember what I was doing. And I figured it out with the audience there. But I'm not trying to pretend I know everything. I'm not trying to pretend I am the super smart engineer and all that. It's just, I want to show you that it's okay to not know and to ask for help when you need it, but to also know that you shouldn't be afraid to go into these types of fields because of dumb reasons, like what you wear or what you think people would consider a real engineer is. So all of that to say, I'm very, very happy with where I am right now. I get to, again, go to these kinds of meetups like this. I have some speaking engagements coming up where I never thought I would be speaking at a tech conference. This year I had a goal to speak at one because I felt that was it was a cool achievement that I would like to get for my personal career. And I applied to a ton of tech conferences, and I only wanted one, now I have 5. So I have 5 talks I have to prepare for, but I'm super happy about that. So I don't mean to share my story as a way to say, look at how amazing I am. I mean to share my story to say, you can do it too. That I'm just one example, one story. I didn't even know I wanted to be in tech, where someone else may have been doing this since they were 5. Somebody could probably be giving speeches at 21 because they're already super into it. I just want to share my story because I hope it relates to somebody, whether it's from what I wear to some struggle that we had. And I think a lot more of the answers that I give when I talk in the panel later will be maybe a little bit more interesting to y'all. But yeah, that's it. That's my story, and thank you for listening very much.
All right. Thank you, Adrienne. Really appreciate that. Great story. So we are going to have the panel next. I do have one other announcement. I don't know if you saw it, but there's a pretty cool poster with a QR code out front. If you're interested in any opportunities at Zillow, it's going to be brought in here right now, then you can just hold your phone up to it on the camera. A site will come up. I'm just saying, like, I could go on for days about how amazing this company is. So if you guys are interested, feel free to take a look at the openings. Next, we're going to have the panel. So I just wanted to introduce this amazing colleague of mine. She is probably the best technical recruiter I've met and probably one of the best humans I know. So Megumi, please come up.
Thanks, Emily, for this sweet introduction. I don't know if I'm the best recruiter here, but I'm the recruiter here. So if any of you here that are not from Zillow looking for a job, come find me. All right, so this is actually our first time hosting a panel discussion here in Zillow Irvine office. I'm not sure if we had any event like this in other offices, but we're very excited for our panel speakers here today. Could you guys come up here and take a seat? Oh, and okay. So, let's start out with introducing a little bit about yourself, name, what do you do at Zillow, and a little bit about yourself too, Adrienne, in addition to what you shared. You want to start out first?
Hi, I'm Amal Yunus. I'm a senior software engineer here at Zillow at the Zillow Offers team. I joined about 3 months ago, and I've been in the tech industry for about 10 years.
You've heard me before. I'm Adrienne Tacke. I'm a software engineer for a fintech company in Las Vegas, and I've been doing this for about 8 years.
Hi, my name is Annie Lau. I'm a engineering lead at Zillow Group. I've been in the tech industry for over 13 years, and I recently actually moved from the Bay Area, and I'm very happy for this opportunity to be here to share with you my experience being a woman in tech.
I'm Trip, and I've been here about 2.5 years. I'm a principal program manager here and work on internal sales tools to help our sales folks do their job and help Beth find their next home. And I've been doing this for about 25 years, so I'm a little older than you. And I'm not female. But more on that later.
Yeah. All right. Thanks again for being here today. I'm very excited. So when I was thinking about the topic, supporting women in tech industry and how it feels like to be women in the tech industry, I thought, let's take a step back and think about how it feels like to be a person in a situation where you don't feel included. And I'm pretty sure everyone has that feeling or experienced that feeling where you lose your confidence and you feel like you just can't present yourself anymore. And I think that's a common issue that we hear within women in tech industry a lot. So today, my hope is that through this discussion, we can share some good insights and empower people to be confident with their career and hopefully find a way to be an ally to support women in tech industry. So with that said, I want to start out by kind of finding out how you guys get to where you are, what led you to a tech industry. Trip, you want to start?
Sure. Actually, I went to school, got a business degree, started out in finance, and was working towards that. And the product I was working on was written in Access 1.0 in VB and on Windows Server. And as I got more into trying to produce its output, I spent more time doing QA and debugging it, and decided I really like this technology thing. It's a lot more interesting to me, and ended up starting my technology career at that point of deciding to leave finance and head towards technology, and started as a contract QA person up for Microsoft. And it was a great experience, but it was also at a time that was extraordinarily combative. Every meeting was tear everyone else down in the room to make yourself look better. And that was just a universal. It wasn't a male, female, it was just destroy that person and you look better. And I think that's where we stand today a little bit in the women in technology. Not necessarily so aggressive per se, but in that feeling that you always have to take care of your own first and switching that more to a collaborative, we were talking over dinner, right? Like the collaboration, but not the rock star, is how we really get to that next step. And then the male-female thing, race, gender is irrelevant. It's, can this person help me get this project forward? So that's what's kind of driving me lately. And honestly, I got a daughter, and I don't want her to deal with, I don't want my son to deal with it either, but I want her to feel welcome in the industry she sees her dad in and wants to pursue. And so that's really kind of accelerated my desire to facilitate change.
All right. How about you, Mo?
I feel I was kind of lucky. I grew up in a family of engineers, including my older sister, so it was so natural for me to become an engineer as well. It was something that was very encouraged in my family. There was no like stereotype about engineering being a masculine field or anything like that. I know this sounds a little bit ideal, but that's how it was for me. And I joined the university to become an engineer. I wasn't sure what type of engineer yet. And then one day I got to attend Microsoft Innovation Day. That was back then, like many years ago. And Steve Ballmer was the speaker there, and he gave like very inspirational speech. And he talked about the future, and he said, when I think about the future, there are 3 words that come to mind: developers, developers, developers. And I was like, yeah, no, that's what I want to be. I want to be a developer. So that's how it started for me.
Well, I want to be a developer too. But my kind of path to engineering was actually very different from yours. I actually grew up in a family that we took the boat and we came here to America. They didn't know anything about the educational system. I was never encouraged or pushed. But I think growing up, I've always been curious about the world around me and how things worked. So, I discovered the screwdriver and what you can do with it, and I took things apart. And on many occasions, I was not able to put them back together. So,
No clubs worked in my house after that.
so my family wasn't as thrilled from my discovery, but because of that, it really cultivated my passion for learning, for building, and for problem solving. And actually, that led to my, kind of excelling in math and realizing that I knew that I wanted to go into STEM, as a career, but I didn't know exactly what I wanted to do. It wasn't until when I went to UC Berkeley, I double majored in mathematics and computer science, that I kind of fell in love with engineering. And I realized that all my passion was in computer science. And then also, it also helped that when I went and took upper division of math, they took away most of my numbers, and they wanted me to prove 1 + 1 = 2, and I was like, what? And it just got too conceptual for me, and I realized that, yes, engineering is my passion.
You've already heard my story. The only thing I'll add here is that coming from a Filipino family, I knew I did not want to be a nurse, so I had to look for something else.
It's so interesting to hear everyone with different backgrounds, family encouraging you to be an engineer, or, you didn't know that engineering was an option until you got older and you got exposed to the industry. So thank you so much for sharing that, and I love working here because you get to hear so many great stories, and you don't know until you talk to them, and we have so many engineers here and other great people here too, and it's just amazing every time you get to hear everyone's story. Going back to what I said earlier about not feeling included, I hear often, especially among women, that they feel dismissed or not heard in a work setting. Have you guys experienced that, or have you seen that? If there's any advices that you can share for women to, and not just women, but everyone to kind of speak up and be heard.
There's a particular thing that I've noticed where most of the groups that I've worked in are majority male, except for the first job I had. And when I worked in these groups, there were always times where I would bring up an idea, and 5 minutes later, somebody else pretty much spits up my exact idea, and then they go along with it. And that was super frustrating for me, because I said, was nobody listening to me? I just explained this exact thing. The only difference is that this male person said it, or said it louder, or was the last person to say it. So before, that really, really got to me. But what I've seen and what I'm thankful for now is my current coworkers. They're all very, very cognizant of when that happens sometimes. And what they do is they say, when the other person tries to spin up that idea as their own, somebody else will call them out on it. And they'll say, oh, so that's exactly what Adrienne was saying, right? And that immediately makes me feel heard. That makes me feel like people were paying attention. They're not falling for, somebody saying it louder or somebody else is saying it. And that's something I truly look for in coworkers, male or female. That no matter who is saying it, if you notice this, that's something at least I would like to share with you. That's super helpful for someone if you see that happening to someone, for you to go back and say, wasn't this your idea? Or if somebody gets cut off, oh, what were you saying? Because a lot of the times, a lot of people get cut off too.
Along those lines, I notice if some people here have worked with me, I'm a little outspoken, and I'll jump in and I'll get excited and I'll be like, oh yeah, and we gotta do that. And I will step on other people, step on their words, sorry, don't step on them. And okay, I've stepped on a few people, sorry, I didn't mean to. But it's really stepping back, and what I've tried to do and think about, and I see other engineers do it too, and our better leaders do it, is be like, hey, do you have anything to add? Or, oh, you were gonna say something, or, and even my boss at this point is like, Trip, shut up. He needs to say something. And it's because when you're in the middle of it, sometimes it's hard to recognize that you are consuming the oxygen in the room, and someone says, hey, give that person a chance, and you go, oh yeah. And most people are, once they get called on it or understand or hear it, can back off. But I think it's kind of everyone's responsibility in the room to take that opportunity to do that for other people in the room. And the one thing that Zillow really does, not that I'm here to plug Zillow, is with the insights we do, I can know your primary communication mechanism and yours, and I can say, oh, she's red, and if you're Zillow, you know what that means.
I'm actually blue.
Are you blue? Okay. Which makes sense. And learn their communication style, so you don't call them out if they're not comfortable with it, or you know you can call them out, and figure out how to communicate.
Yeah, I think you bring up a good point. That's kind of one of the things that I also really focus on my team, where I know an individual, not this team, but the team that I head up in San Francisco. There was an engineer. She was a female. She was still a junior engineer. She was very not confident of herself. So many times she just sit quietly. She wouldn't say anything. Not because she doesn't have anything to add, but she was just had that feeling of like, oh, I'm the junior here, I don't know anything. So one of my things that I try to do is I call her out. I said, be careful, because I'm calling you out. You have to put because everybody has like value. And the matter of experience of being dismissed, I mean, in my career, there was many times I was the only female in meetings. And actually my first brush of being dismissed actually happened in college, when I was taking a engineering course about electronics, and I was doing a lab time, and I had a male partner, and he was so lost in the what we were doing, and I was pretty much doing all the work. And so I had a question for the teacher assistant. I came up, I asked a question. He addressed the question, but he didn't even look at me. It was like looking at my partner and just pretend that I wasn't even there. And I remember feeling like, what the heck? It's I asked you the question, why are you not addressing me? But what I really, what has worked for me, dealing with being dismissed, is that I don't focus on it. What I really focus on is, looking at it objectively. Like, what can you do? What can you do in order to be heard? Whether it's like finding that advocate, someone, you know, that you trust, that can help support you when they're in that meeting so that they can like, hey, you know, that's Annie's idea. You know, I think that's very valuable. And also, you know, when you're still new in your career, it's like kind of intimidating to really voice your opinions, and the meeting might be like going so fast and there's like louder people and you're a little bit softer. I always tell my you know, team, prepare for it. If you're someone who, you know, is a little bit timid, prepare for the meeting, know what you're going into, have your idea, and be ready to pitch. And then work with your manager, because, you know, I'm always there to support my team if there's, you know, and make sure that people are heard. So work with your manager, and they will help you, you know, cultivate the confidence that, you know, that people need in order to kind of voice their opinion. But I feel like no matter if you're a junior, you're mid-level, or you're you know, senior, everybody has valuable input that they can add to a meeting.
Yeah, I think I would add to that is find your advocate. Because you don't know who that person's gonna be, and not that you can't speak for yourself, but not everybody's comfortable in doing that all the time. And if I know someone isn't, say, so outspoken, I may say, hey, we're going to this meeting, do you have anything do you want me to bring up? And I don't present it as my idea, I'd be like, well, I've talked to a few people, and it was suggested that we try going about it this route. Do you have any information on that, Emily? And Emily's like, oh yeah, and it's an easy lead in instead of saying, oh, I have this idea. So finding an advocate or someone that can help you, that confidence will build, and then it becomes totally unnecessary.
Yeah, that's a really good point. It's not just about, you know, being aware of everyone, but it's having that teamwork and having that person that can help you every day. Do you want to add anything to it?
So this is something I think a lot of people go through, especially at the beginning of their careers, and then they're like in a meeting, they're completely quiet because they fear like they would say something that might sound stupid, but then find someone else say their idea like a few minutes later and be like, man, I should have said that. So like it's important to be brave and make your voice heard, because like you'll definitely regret it if you don't. So.
It actually brings up the next question that I wanted to address. And also earlier, Adrienne, you mentioned a lot about I didn't feel confident enough to take the action, or I think you said a lot of things about not feeling good enough. And also even when you're presenting your amazing project, you even said it's not that great, you know, like without really thinking about it. A lot of times, especially female, they tend to doubt yourself, and you know, they feel like they're not good enough. One thing I heard from one of the conferences that I attended was that a lot of women don't apply to jobs because they disqualify themselves without applying, because, oh, it says 5 years of experience. I only have 4.5 years of experience. And a lot of times, you know, even on workspace, they say, you know, I don't feel like I'm good enough, or my job is not good enough, and people call it imposter syndrome. And I wanted to hear your experience, and I think you mentioned a little bit, but your experience, or whoever is going through that doubtfulness of their ability, how can we overcome that? Yeah.
I'll start on this
Yeah.
one. So two things I've learned, actually not through software, but just through life. Don't answer the question for someone else. Let them answer the question. Oh, I shouldn't apply for this. I'm probably not qualified. You're not the one making the decisions whether you're qualified, right? The recruiter, well, okay, so maybe you are making that decision, and you. But outside of that, submit it. What if you're actually the right qualifications? And sometimes you have other non-tangible assets that you can bring to the organization. An organization looking to add to diversity and says, hey, I need more women. I'm gonna take someone that doesn't have the same qualifications maybe, because it helps me here, and it helps address some other things I wanna do. So don't say no for someone else. Let someone say no for themselves. And then the imposter syndrome. It is something that I deal with. So I'm a quarter century into my career, and I deal with it once a month. What am I doing here? I'm not good enough for this. These people are way smarter than me. No, I don't even know what I'm doing. Why am I even coming to work today? I have no idea what to do today. And then something happens and someone asks me a question and I'm like, oh yeah, you do that, you take that over there and you put that. I'm like, oh yeah, I'm not an idiot. And then you kind of get buoyed again. And then I'll be talking to senior people that have been around longer than I have. And they express the same thing. It's not a woman thing, it's not a man thing, it's just a reality that it's difficult. So just work through it, know that everybody has the same problem, and someone next to you has probably felt the same way at some point.
For me, I think what helped a lot is just knowing that this is like a syndrome. Like didn't know about it till recently. I was talking to a friend, like just explaining my symptoms, and she was like, "Oh yeah, this is the imposter syndrome." I was like, "Wow, this is a thing. It has a name," and I'm like, it's in itself like a relief for me. And I feel like I keep telling myself that I have a unique set of skills. No one have the skills that I have. So I try to remind myself of that and not be intimidated by someone who's talking about something and they sound very smart because they're knowledgeable about this topic. I'm knowledgeable about other things. And then also like not try to like have different metrics, like how much you achieved, how much you delivered on time, how many people you've helped, and also like helping people who are earlier in their career. This helps a lot because you realize how far you've come, and this like helps a lot with these symptoms.
I think with me, what really helps when sometimes, like, I think earlier in my career, I had more of that feeling. But, as you progress, you still have that feeling every so often.
I'm the only one?
No, I do. I'm saying I do too, every so often.
It happens.
It happens, whether like sometimes you make a mistake and you're like, oh no, I'm such an idiot. But like then you focus on the negative and you don't realize how much you do know and how much you have accomplished. And I think what really helped me through when I'm like kind of in that mindset is actually my husband. He's been very like, positive, and also like coworkers who like remind me of like, things that I do know, the things I've accomplished. And so what if I, fell or I made a mistake, you learn from it and you move on. And you objectively figure out what is it you're missing? Why did you make that mistake? Is it because you need to learn this new skill set? Is it because, you didn't have enough data and then you just use it as a learning experience? And realize it's okay. It's okay to make a mistake as long as you learn from them.
The last thing I'll add is, for me, in the beginning, it was purely because I didn't know anything, and I always had the feeling of I'm going to lose this job, I'm going to lose face if I don't show that I'm qualified for this. And as I grew in my career, I always would pinpoint it back down to whenever I would feel this feeling of not being good enough, not being capable or belonging. It comes down to like two things. It's I didn't understand the problem well enough, whether that's through experience, whether that's because I read through it too fast, whether my circumstances didn't allow me to because I didn't get a good night's sleep. I didn't understand the problem enough, or I was comparing myself to someone who you can never compare yourself to anybody else. They had a different background than you. They had different opportunities than you. They had a different night's sleep than you. You cannot fully, truly, with 100% confidence, compare yourself to what you're viewing from somebody else. And I remind myself of this. One example of this is when I feel this way, and when I see that I was wrong in feeling this way, I try to remind myself of that. And one example of that is I said I had one goal to speak at one tech conference. I didn't even want to apply because all the tech conferences I saw were speakers from Google, speakers from Facebook. It's, the Scott Hanselmans, and, you had to be a big name. And I thought only big names could go speak at tech conferences. Who would want to listen to Adrienne Tacke from Debt Trader? Like, what's Debt Trader? So I didn't even want to apply, but I said, I really, really want to see if even just one
So I applied, and like I said, I got 5. So now I'm freaking out about preparing 5 talks. But I remind myself now in the future, if I ever feel like I don't belong again, just think, I got accepted to 5 talks. And that's because I took the chance and I said, the worst I can get is a no. That's something my husband taught me. The worst I can get is a no. If you're afraid, the worst you can get is a no. And then you try again.
Before we continue, I keep looking at the water bottles over there. I know we brought it for you guys, but you guys can't reach the water bottles. Do you guys want to get water break, or are you guys good to continue? Okay, good. Just wanted to make sure that you guys are not dehydrated. Okay, so Annie, you mentioned that you're working as an engineering manager now. And I'm going to open up to everyone too, but when you were climbing up your career to become manager from individual contributor, was there any wall that you hit, or do you feel like you were challenged because you're a female?
I mean, I got into management not actually, my climb happened in another company, not Zillow. I came in as a manager. But I did hit walls. I mean, I think coming as a female and also small in stature, I was many times not taken seriously. People would kind of think that, you know, she doesn't know what she's talking about. So it took a lot of, I guess, dedication, hard work, not letting those people kind of wear you down, and just kind of just keep going and not giving up. And just realize that you know your stuff and you just gotta work hard and prove yourself. And I mean, I was at the company for 6 years. I moved up all the way up to director. And it was actually during the time that I had my 2 kids. And so, you know, being a parent and everything, it's possible. Being female is possible. I think the one thing is, like, you know, having that mindset, that just that endurance of, like, not seeing that that's who you are. Like, sometimes, like, people's reaction, you think that that kind of measures on how good you are. But, you know, you should just have confidence in yourself, remind yourself, and then have action, have a plan. Realize where you want to go. Because, you know, the more you're clear on where you want to go, the more likely that you'll get there.
Did you guys want to share your experience living at the career, or seeing anyone go through some struggles, or how can we support?
Yeah, I've gone all over. I've done development, QA, program management, product management, in various different capacities. And the first time I had a team and it was all cool, and I'm like, oh yeah, I made it. And then I went through a reorg and I lost the team. And I was like, oh, I'm nothing anymore. I'm just an individual contributor. And I was talking to a friend of mine who's like, you're so lucky, you don't have to write reviews for all those people. I've got 25 reviews to write by tomorrow. And I was like, oh, well, it's not all bad. And then my career took a turn and a new opportunity came about. And then I was a manager again, and then I wasn't. And then I'm a manager again, and then I wasn't. It's really focusing on what you want to accomplish and where you want to go and what opportunities are in front of you, and just saying, well, that's interesting. I'm gonna head over there, see if I can get there, and figure out the path. So every day is a roller coaster, or it can be a roller coaster. Just enjoy the rides down and work on climbing back up.
Yeah, it's interesting to see it from different perspectives, right? You know, when you become non-manager, and then, like you say, your friend said, you're lucky. I think it's a good reminder that, you know, if you always, other people's position might look better, but there's always positive in what you do, and yeah. So one other topic that I wanted to discuss is, and today we have a lot of allies here to support women, and we really appreciate that. And then I think that's one of the biggest topics that we discussed in diversity group and diversity hiring is, we have Let's Support Women group, But that doesn't mean that you have to be a woman to be part of this group. You know, you can be an ally and do so much. But a lot of times they don't really know how to show support. They don't know how they can be an asset. So if you guys have any advice or anything that you want to share, you want to start, Adrienne?
So the thing I mentioned earlier that has probably helped my my experience in my positions, just finding allies like that who will, you know, call somebody out when I'm talked over, or call somebody out when they're pretty much telling about my idea. But another thing that I found very helpful for me is when we're collaborating and talking about how to implement something, especially something that's very technical. For me, I'm one of those where you need to ask me what my thoughts are. Because sometimes I'll get so lost in listening to everybody's ideas, kind of formulating my own, trying to pick apart, you know, oh, these parts I agree with, these parts I don't, why do I not agree with them? So that when it is my turn to speak, I kind of know what to say. I don't just refute something for the sake of refuting it. I have an actual, you know, alternative solution to it to provide. But something that has helped me become more confident into just speaking for myself is when earlier other people would call on me and ask me, because I just tend to get very lost in listening to everything. So that would be something that I would expect people to do for everybody, not just male and female.
I'd say, well, clearly not being a woman. The best value someone like myself can bring is try and mentor someone else. Try and mentor, doesn't have to be a woman. Helping anyone helps everyone. Because if someone sees me mentoring someone, then they're like, oh, well, that's cool. Can he help, she help me, or can I help someone else? It just broadens it out. The expression, all boats rise with the rising tide. I messed that up. But you get the point is, as we all do better, we all do better. So if I help one, the cascading effect of that is really important. And come to these things. A friend of mine runs Girl Develop It, where they're focused on getting women into technology. Go and support. Go and say, hey, I know someone who might be interested in this job. Call someone you know and say, why don't you apply for this job? You can do this. You know, don't let them off the hook because they're uncomfortable with, well, I'm not sure. Obviously, don't push and force someone into it, but you know, step out and try and help someone else see an opportunity, because it's really hard to see opportunities for yourself, because self-doubt takes over so frequently and in so many ways we do things, and you can see it for someone else and be like, you're perfect for that job. Hey, you should come and apply. I know someone over there, let me help. We all got somewhere from someone stepping up and helping at some point in our lives, and return the favor, pay it forward, I think is the best advice I offer.
I think why a lot of women quit the field, leave tech or decide to leave tech, is because they feel they don't have an opportunity at getting a promotion. They don't see their path forward. So I think it's very important for the leads in the tech industry to make it clear for women what's the path forward, how can they get to the next step in their careers, how they can be prepared for promotions, and also it's very important that they get assigned high impact, high visibility projects that will help them achieve their goals, and they need to be appreciated for what they accomplish. And also in general, I feel if more women are in leadership positions, this will create a more female-friendly environment.
And that's also another thing that I want to talk about, but I'll keep that for a later question. So since we started a little bit late, we don't have a lot of time, but I want to ask one more question before opening it to the audience for some questions. Annie, also earlier you mentioned that you have kids and you became parents while you were going up your career, and Tripp, you mentioned about your daughter. A lot of people have this in their mind, whether they are about to have kids or they're planning to have kids later on. How can you balance being full-time parents and also work? And then if you're not the parents, how can we provide the best support so that they feel well supported? And it's not just for women, but I think this is one of the common questions that I hear. Do you want to start, Annie?
Sure. So I think from my experience, what kind of works for me, because being a parent and I have two girls. They're 5 and 7, so they're pretty close. And when I had my first one, I thought my second one would be just like double the work. As they're so close, it's actually 10 times the work. So it's actually a lot of work, and sleep is nice when they're still young. But what kind of works for me is realizing and being very clear with yourself and being very honest. Like, what would it take would make you happy for your family life, and what do you want for your career life, and then kind of list out items that are very crucial that you would not ever want to compromise for your family life, and then have a direction where you want to go for your career. And once you're very clear, like I said, if you know where you're going, the likelihood of getting there is much higher than kind of by chance getting there. So being very clear and being very honest with yourself, what would make you happy? Because our work, when we come to work, we bring our whole self. So if we're not happy in our family life, we're not going to be the best performer at work either. We're going to be kind of still thinking about our family stuff, and so just being very upfront, very honest for yourself. What are some of the things that you cannot compromise and that you just need for your family life? And then what you want for your career, and then making a plan. Planning out how you're going to get there. And what I really appreciate is I heard from one of I forgot who, but they were kind of sharing how they got to where they're at, and they're saying that when you plan out your career, you shouldn't think about how you get to that job, like how do you get to that position, but rather what experience, who you need to know, and what do you need to learn in order to get there so that you can survive at that job. So thinking in perspective of connection, resources, and experience is much more practical. And then after that, after you're very clear, having a plan, being proactive in your communication. Because as a parent, life happens. There are going to be times that your kid is sick and you have 2 hours sleep and there's just no way that you can make it to work. So you have to be proactive to let your manager know, let your team know that, hey, I'm sorry, I can't come this morning. I'm going to shift my hours, but I'll get the work done. And I think being proactive and being, in that way, they will see that even though you're a parent, you are still 100%, dedicated to what you need to do. But when you're at work, you're 100% at work. When you're at home, don't bother me. I'm 100% at home. So that's kind of how I've always kind of approached it.
Amal, you mentioned you have kids too, right?
Yeah, I have 2 kids. So my kids are close to your kids. They're 6 and 7. My experience is I haven't just been a mom and a full-time employee. I was also a master's student for 2 or 3 years. So I was doing all 3 things at the same time. And all the advice I can give is that it's possible. There's no one-size-fits-all solution that would have made things a lot easier. But everyone has their own circumstances. You don't know what kind of kids you'll have. You don't know how much support you're going to get. So you cannot know beforehand. But it's possible. It takes a lot of effort, all-nighters, and a lot of compromise. Not everything has to be perfect. Things can slip every once in a while. House doesn't have to be sparkly clean all the time. So things happen, but it's doable.
Yeah, for me on this one, I actually had a little bit different experience because I think being a dad is different than a mom as far as not just the social, but the mental aspect of it. Different. I always appreciate the transparency of why you're not here. So if you have child problems, and admittedly, I have some sympathy because mine are smoking and drinking already, they're like 15 and 18. And so when you say, oh, hey, something happened, or it broke the arm, or the flu, and we're up all night, I immediately go in and do what you need to do. I got you. Tell me what you need, and I'll cover, or I'll do it. No, I don't mean cover, like, I'm not gonna tell anyone, but cover, like, let me know, I'm your on-site rep, let me help you through this. And that transparency really, I think it works. It works in two ways. The negative way, which does happen, is you find out the people that are intolerant of it. And while that's difficult, especially if that person is your manager, or your manager's manager, or your manager's manager's manager, maybe that's the wrong place to be. If they're not going to support you, and the fact of being a parent, what if you have cancer? Oh, you can't come to work today? Yeah, the chemo was really bad. So, yeah, I don't think I want to work there. And that's easy to say, it's hard to do, because that's my income, that's my health insurance, that's my whatever. But that transparency allows you to understand what your boundaries are, and the things you need to be aware of and concerned with. And hopefully you have enough people going, no, I got you on this. Go sleep, get some sleep, I know what it's like. And you don't have to have kids to know what it's like. We've all had sleepless nights, we've all had the flu, we've all dealt with that. And roll. It's the best thing you can do. And that transparency will then dictate to you what you decide to do next. Wow, they really support me here. I'm gonna work harder out of that respect and wanting to do more, or I need to go and find some other place.
I don't have kids, so this was very helpful. Thank you for talking about that. The one thing I will say with my current coworkers is, you know, they see me going to these things. So with no kid, this is my child. This is my, I go to events like this. I go to speaking engagements. I write books. I like to do this in my spare time. So I treat it as my child, I guess. But what they have told me is that they actually appreciate that when I do go to these things, I kind of try to make up for it by either helping them if, let's say they had to go home because their kid is sick. I've had that a couple times, and they're not going to make the sprint. Like, they have one more task that they have to do, but they just can't do it because they had to go home early. I'll come in and pitch in for them and do that for them, and, you know, take that task over so that we can finish our sprint. The whole team finishes what we committed to. And in return, they kind of do the same for me. So right now, I still have work. I didn't take PTO for these days that I've been here. They're helping me with some of my tasks. They know that I'm here doing something that I love. And you know, if there's something that's kind of falling behind or something, they know they're okay with it. They respect the fact that I'm doing this, and they help pitch in. It's a real team. It's a collaboration effort. And that's really hard to find sometimes in groups. So that's something I would highly advise, is that if you don't have a team that's respectful of your lifestyle like that, maybe it's a sign to find another team. You know, like Tripp said, you don't have to have kids for you to still feel entitled to these kinds of things. People like me who don't have kids, there are things we like to do outside of that, you know, if you don't glow up in the face of parents of all these things, that you guys can help each other. Everybody can help each other. So that's all I've got to say about
Teamwork. Yeah. Thanks for that. Before we wrap up, I want to see if anyone has any questions. Like, right? Can I take one of yours?
I have one. I have a really good one.
Hi, can you hear? Wow, this is very loud. One of the themes I notice is that we put a lot of pressure on women to kind of initiate some of these opportunities for themselves. What I've seen in the workplace is sometimes you're either too quiet or you're too loud, or if you're outspoken, you become bossy all of a sudden. So how do we hold
leaders and managers accountable for them giving us those opportunities as well. It's kind of like an awkward conversation, so I just wanted to see if you guys had any tips on that. That's a really good question. Hopefully you guys have some answers.
For me, when I'm leading a team, it's really, I want to understand what your goal, so my job is to make you better. And then your job is to make me look great by you looking good. So how I try to accomplish that is, I want to understand what you're trying to do. I want to understand what your goals are. And this is a one-on-one conversation, maybe once, maybe over a series of time, depending on your comfort level. Because then it's in the back of my head when we're in a meeting and I know you're being quiet because maybe you're a little uncomfortable in this circumstance, I'll draw you out. Not call you out, draw you out. A little bit different there. Or even coordinate with you and say, I'm gonna call you out in this meeting, I just want you to know. Use that amazing idea you had, I'm gonna set you up, you hit home. And I'm gonna do that for everyone. I'm gonna try and grow them. I'm gonna try and help them get where they wanna go. And I think it works universally. On the flip side, you can also take it the other way and like, hey, I noticed you're really loud. Again, Matt G, if you know him, my manager, will be like, Trip, shut up. Because I can be a little loud, and he's comfortable talking to me about that. But build that relationship with your manager, because that's your number one ally. You can have allies everywhere else. That's the person that's getting you promoted or giving you the opportunity to do the next thing, because they generally hand out the assignments. So that's your number one ally. Make them your ally. It's not always easy. Sometimes it's not possible. Then you need to leave. But that's where I would be focusing on is. And another thing I had with I think the best manager I ever had is I would give an exec debrief, and then immediately afterwards I'd say, okay, Chris, what did I do? What can I, because we had this team where I would watch him when he was presenting, he would watch me when I was presenting, and give me direct feedback, like, hey, I noticed you just stared like this. Don't do that. Oh, okay. And I built a feedback loop with him, and it was very effective. Again, it's building that rapport with your manager.
Hi, my name is Sabah. I'm working in Zillow. So I had this question where you mentioned that whenever we try to put up some ideas in the meeting and it doesn't get here. So it has happened to me a lot, and I really don't know, like, how to overcome this and be heard. Yeah. And also I have another question, like you also mentioned that whenever you're trying to try for another job or look for some new technology or something. So how did you learn, like, what all things you tried to improve yourself and to achieve that goal?
So that's two different questions. So and I think the first question, it was something that we discussed. So let's go over the second question first, because that was very interesting. New technology or a new skill set. How did you guys learn? What opportunities were there to gain new experience?
For me, I need pressure to do something. That's a blessing and a curse. So I'm not one of those that will have a list of tutorials ready for me to check off when I have spare time, because I'm never gonna get around to it. There's no need for me to learn this. There's no pressing consequence or something at the end. Nothing is gonna happen to me if I don't do these tutorials. And whether or not that's a good thing, you can decide. For me, that's just what I know personally works for me. So, examples. My husband and I like to go to hackathons in Vegas. Anytime a conference is there, if they're holding a hackathon, we go. And what's the motivation? There are some pretty awesome prizes that you can win if you win the hackathon. and I want to win, I don't know, an Oculus Rift or something. I want to win $5,000. I want to be on the stage there and present our cool idea there. And by going to these hackathons is really where I learned how to use React Native. I've never used it. I touched React a little bit, but not anywhere in production code, not even, just side projects, dabbling with it. So now there's this goal, there's this tangible goal in front of me, competing with all these other engineers here for 24 hours to build something really awesome with one of these judges, one of these sponsored groups APIs. And that's where I feel I learn the most, is when there's something at the end there. There needs to be a carrot for me at the end. Another thing was in a previous interview I had to pick something from the developer portal and kind of talk about it, like evangelize it. It was for a developer evangelist position. And again, I didn't know what to do until maybe the 2 days before I had to create a presentation. I was looking at it, I was looking at the different offerings they had, and I said, I think I know what to do, but I don't know yet. Started brainstorming ideas, and then because I really, really wanted this interview to go well, that's kind of where it forced me. So I guess what I was trying to say there is that those APIs were available. I could have played with them at any time, but because I had this interview to go for, I really want to make this presentation work. I want to make this demo so awesome that they hand me an offer letter. So I hope that's happening. We're waiting. But so I need something to kind of drive me. That's what I personally need to learn new things.
I mean, working at Zillow Group, there's a lot of resources that we have. We have Pluralsight, we have lynda.com that anything we want to learn, we can learn. And it's true, sometimes there is like a need for a forcing factor. And sometimes, I think it's worthwhile to network, to reach out to the people that have the skill set that you want and ask them, like, what's the best way for me to learn this new skill set? How can you help me learn this new skill set? So I think, leveraging off the internet, it's like a vast information of things that you can, any skills you want to learn, you can Google it and learn it. So I think it's just a matter of having a plan, strategize, talk to people so that you can shortcut the learning. Because sometimes if you try to fumble through Google, it takes you forever to get to the solution. But if you go and ask for someone who already has that skill set, ask for their advice, you can shortcut the learning.
As much as I want to continue this very interesting Q&A, we're running out of time. I'm not sure if JavaScript LA has shared the email address to submit questions. Was it on the invite? Okay, it is on the flyer, so hopefully you guys would be open to share some ideas later, and then maybe we can share a platform to answer more questions that you guys, okay, sorry, you guys couldn't hear me. But hopefully we can share more questions and answers where you guys can kind of read and learn more. Unfortunately, we don't have a lot of time today. But one last question, yes.
One question, if you show of hands, how many people are either self-employed or consultants or entrepreneurs in this group? If you show of hands.
How many people are self-employed or, sorry?
Or consultants or entrepreneurs?
Zillow or?
Entrepreneurs? Self-employed or consultants?
This is a question for everyone.
Yeah.
All right.
Show of
Emily,
hands.
could you repeat the question again?
I was wondering if we have a show of hands, how many people are either self-employed, consultants, or entrepreneurs?
Okay, so we'll start with self-employed.
Well, they're
Wait, it's the
kind of
same thing, isn't
right?
it?
Same thing,
Self-employed,
right?
entrepreneur.
Like self-employed consultant or like,
Well, so
yeah.
how many people?
The
Yeah.
same thing. Got one.
Did that answer your question? That was great. That's a new way to do an interactive Q&A. Maybe we should do that next time. We'll keep that for an idea. But thank you so much for being part of this panel discussion. It was great and it was very entertaining. I learned a lot and I hope you guys learned a lot too. Before I let you guys go, we have some little gift for you guys to take home. Okay, so, there it is.
Do we get new houses? It is Zillow, we deal in houses. Yeah, home loans, I'm good with the home loan.
It's a little bit of encouragement. Take it home, eat it for tonight, and really, really appreciate you being here. And it's late, but this is part of the reason why I love working here. Oh yeah, we do have a raffle. We do as well. Okay. Okay.
All right, everybody get your raffle tickets out. Oh. First one, 3894018.
Bingo!
One more time. 3894018. Woo, all right, come on up. Awesome. All right, next one, 3894029. All right. All right, 3894019. We have two more. All right. 3894042. 3894042.
Okay, two more.
All right.
We will probably keep this in the library on the 10th floor. So that way, so yes, Zillow has a library. Maybe, yeah.
All right. Thank you. 3894005. Yes? Woo! Come on up. All right, and the last lucky winner. 3894024. Thank you guys so much for being a part of this panel. We all really appreciate it here, and I'm sure everybody took something away from this. Thank you guys so much, and thank you all for attending. We really appreciate it. Check out the QR code on your way out if you'd like.
One thing I want to know, Emily here, she's been with Zillow for only 4 months. I still remember when I interviewed her, she was full of energy, and she came in and said, I did this event at Autogravity, which was the company that she was working at, and I knew then I need Emily. We need more events here in our Irvine office. And this is the event that she hosted. She connected to JavaScript, and so I really want to thank you, Emily. For those of you who don't work here and if you are interested in opportunities with Zillow, follow us or contact myself or Emily, and hopefully we can get you up here. But thank you again.